For centuries, the Ottoman Empire governed a vast and diverse population through a system that balanced loyalty, religion, and imperial authority. This multi-ethnic structure allowed Muslims, Christians, and Jews to coexist under a single political framework. However, in the 19th century, a powerful new force began to undermine this balance. Nationalism, born in Europe and spread through ideas of shared language, history, and identity, transformed the political landscape and ultimately fractured the Ottoman state from within. Nationalism challenged the foundations of Ottoman rule. The empire had traditionally defined identity through religion rather than ethnicity or nationality. Subjects were classified as Muslims or non-Muslims, not as Greeks, Serbs, Bulgarians, or Arabs. Loyalty was expected to flow toward the Sultan, not toward a nation. As nationalist ideas spread, this system became increasingly outdated. People began to imagine political communities based on shared culture and ancestry rather than imperial allegiance. The Balkans became the epicenter of nationalist revolt. Influenced by European political thought and supported by foreign powers, Christian populations in southeastern Europe began demanding independence. Serbia, Greece, and later Bulgaria experienced uprisings that weakened Ottoman control. These movements were fueled by education, printing, and the spread of nationalist literature, which promoted the idea that each ethnic group deserved its own state. Foreign intervention accelerated the process. European powers, particularly Russia and Austria, supported Balkan nationalism for their own strategic interests. By backing independence movements, they weakened Ottoman authority while expanding their influence in the region. What began as internal unrest quickly became an international problem, drawing the empire into costly wars and diplomatic crises. The success of early nationalist revolts inspired others. Once one group achieved autonomy or independence, neighboring populations followed. The empire struggled to respond effectively. Military repression increased resentment, while concessions were seen as signs of weakness. Each rebellion drained resources, reduced territory, and exposed the limitations of imperial control. The Ottoman government attempted reform as a solution. Legal and political changes were introduced to create a shared Ottoman identity that could unite all subjects regardless of religion or ethnicity. These reforms promised equal rights, citizenship, and legal equality. However, they arrived too late. Many groups no longer believed in the empire's ability to protect their interests, and nationalist leaders dismissed imperial reforms as empty promises. Muslim populations within the empire also reacted strongly to the rise of nationalism. As Christian provinces gained autonomy or independence, Muslim communities often faced displacement, violence, or economic hardship. Refugees flooded into remaining Ottoman territories, increasing social tension and resentment. These pressures pushed parts of the Muslim population toward a more exclusive identity, further undermining unity. The military consequences of nationalism were severe. Rebellions disrupted communication lines, weakened border defenses, and forced the empire to fight multiple internal and external conflicts at the same time. Wars in the Balkans reduced the empire's strategic depth and exposed its inability to compete with modern European armies. Each defeat emboldened nationalist movements and encouraged further resistance. Economic strain followed political fragmentation. Losing provinces meant losing tax revenue, agricultural production, and trade routes. The cost of suppressing revolts and fighting wars increased public debt and deepened economic dependency on European powers. Nationalism thus did not only threaten political unity, but also accelerated financial collapse. By the early 20th century, nationalism had spread beyond the Balkans. Arab intellectuals began questioning Ottoman rule, while Armenian nationalist movements demanded autonomy or independence. The empire, once held together by religious hierarchy and imperial tradition, now faced multiple identity-based challenges simultaneously. Governing diversity had become nearly impossible. The Balkan Wars marked a decisive turning point. In a short period, the empire lost most of its European territories. Millions of people were displaced, and the psychological impact was profound. The idea of the Ottoman Empire as a multi-ethnic state capable of managing diversity collapsed. What remained was a shrinking core struggling to redefine itself. Nationalism also reshaped Ottoman politics. As the empire lost non-Muslim populations, leaders increasingly emphasized Turkish and Muslim identity as a means of survival. This shift further alienated remaining minorities and accelerated fragmentation. The original imperial vision of unity under a single ruler was replaced by competing national projects. In the final years of the empire, nationalism played a central role in its collapse. Internal divisions weakened resistance to foreign invasion and made coordinated reform impossible. When global war arrived, the empire entered the conflict deeply divided and internally fragile. Nationalist tensions turned military defeat into total disintegration. The breakup of the Ottoman Empire illustrates the destructive power of nationalism when it collides with multi-ethnic imperial systems. What had once been a strength, diversity governed through flexibility, became a weakness in an age that demanded national unity and self-determination. The empire could not transform quickly enough to meet this challenge. In retrospect, nationalism did not merely weaken the Ottoman Empire, it replaced it. New nation-states emerged from its ruins, each built on ideas that had once undermined imperial rule. The legacy of this transformation continues to shape politics in Southeastern Europe and the Middle East today.